Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant. We're so excited to be with you today because the day that we're recording this is actually the greatest day of the year to celebrate for us as believers because it's Easter Sunday. And I've been doing some backdoor research on some historical stuff, and today might be the actual year. This year might be the actual date. So so a real anniversary of crucifixion, resurrection. So like on this day in historically in AD 33 is what a lot of historians are kind of nailing that date as. Is it April the 6th? Did I say that right? What are we today?
I don't know. I have to look at my
April
watch.
5th. April 5th. So April 5th of AD 33 is the date that a lot of historians say was the actual date of the resurrection.
Yeah.
So here we are, all these years later, 2026 in the year of our Lord.
That's right.
And so happy Easter to all of you.
Happy Easter.
And that's why. I mean, Heather looking stunning in her Easter outfit.
I never wear a dress.
In her Easter costume. That's funny. Some of y'all will get that.
Yep.
So we've been at church all day, hanging out with our family, got to have lunch and stuff with them, and now we're just glad to be with you guys. And obviously we can't pass up the opportunity to just speak into Easter and the resurrection and really and how that relates to our marriage. And so you guys know how this goes. You've listened to us for 250 episodes or something like that. It's a lot. I think it is close to 250 episodes, maybe more.
We should have a celebrate. Oh,
I don't know. I'll have to look.
We'll have to celebrate 300.
You just start churning these things out and you lose count. But if you've listened to us long enough, you know that a lot of times the way this works is...
Most of the time the way this works
is we get on here and it's, surprise, here's what we're going to talk about today. And so we have been really busy. And so we're just jumping right in. And so I've come up basically with 5 sort of Easter type sayings, but it's just relating Easter and marriage. And so I'm going to spit these out. Heather's not going to know what they are, which is fine because she just does so much better when she doesn't even know and doesn't have a plan. And
I'm not even looking at any notes. If you're watching on YouTube, not only do you see me in a dress, which never happens, but also I have no notes.
Well, and I don't really have notes necessarily. I just have the 5 things because I don't have any other way to. So I took your iPad and I said, these are the 5 quotes.
Do it.
So here's what we're going to talk about. The number one thing here, or the first thing. These are in no particular order. But if God can roll away a stone, then he can also move what's stuck in your marriage.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That's good.
So just thinking about how I think that everybody has something in their marriage that might feel like a stone. That's just something that's just stuck. I don't know,
or is blocking the way.
Yeah. So some things that might be blocking or keeping you stuck, would be like resentment.
Unforgiveness.
Is a great one. Broken trust.
Yep.
Just like the routine of life. We're just stuck. We're just stuck here.
Roommates.
And so maybe even silence, like just kind of giving each other the silence treatment. You're sort of avoiding
stubbornness.
Stubbornness.
Like with both of you just being stubborn. They're not, I'm not going to give. I'm going to wait and let them give.
Yeah. And I think the danger, or there's a couple of things to think about when you think about this saying, is that a lot of things, they feel really stuck or maybe even immovable to us.
Yeah.
And I think that, the perfect example of that is just the stone. When it was funny when the ladies were running to the tomb that morning, and they said, I mean, who's going to roll the tomb? Because they were going
Yeah.
to prepare the burial
Right.
and because they didn't have
Prepare his
time to
body.
do it
Yep.
the night before, or when he died, they
Right.
didn't have time to do it, so they were running to the tomb. And I said the night before, so it wouldn't have been the night before. It would have been yeah. And so they were running, and who's going to move the stone for us because they needed to get in there,
Right.
But and they recognized there's no way we can't move this.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we get stuck and we have stuck places in our marriage and we just think this is immovable. But yet we have a God that rolled the stone away. Not only rolled the stone away, but Jesus was already resurrected when that happened. And so, just the thought of something that we feel is too big. And I think also is that so many times we try to fix those things and ourselves. And really, it's not us that is even able to necessarily fix those. We can certainly do our part and come alongside, but God's just bigger. That's the thing. And so, I don't know, I just thought of that saying and how we just need to invite God into that stuck place.
Yeah. And we have met with so many people that talk about their marriage being stuck, and we know so many different ways that happens. But to listen to people, whether it's through an intensive or whether it's just listening to our podcast or just begging the Lord to help them move past that point of being stuck, to then hear from them and say, there's such freedom on the other side of this. If we had known there was this much freedom before, we would have done it earlier. It's like the reason why I said stubbornness is because I can think of people who were just like, I'm not ready to trust them, or I'm not ready to believe that they've changed, or I'm not ready, and then they finally are like, let me take that step and allow God to work that miracle. And there's just such freedom on the other side. And like, I should have done that so many months or so many years earlier. So, yeah.
That's good.
I like that point. That was a good one.
Okay, so another one would be this. What looks dead in your marriage may just be waiting on God to breathe life back into it.
Dang.
Or maybe not even just what might look dead in your marriage. Maybe there's a party, but maybe it's just your marriage.
Yeah.
Your marriage, your marriage might look dead, but it may just be waiting for God to breathe life back into it. And I think that death, maybe it doesn't always mean that it's finished. Maybe it's just sort of dormant or just waiting. And some of that is a waiting and a willingness for us to surrender it so that God can breathe life back into it. But there's a lot of marriages and a lot of people that are listening to us, and you just feel like my marriage is dead. Like it is dead. And one of the things that I love about, obviously the story of the resurrection, but even when you go all the way back to when you go back in the Gospels to where Lazarus was the friend of Jesus, that he died.
Yeah.
And they, like, he was sick and they were trying to get him
They
to
were
come
hurrying him.
And he ended up, he wasn't in a hurry,
Right.
Because he was busy he wasn't busy like ignoring him. He was busy doing the
His
work that God had called him to do. But he wasn't intimidated by the fact that there was this urgency on their part, and like, you got to get here. And even after he got there, like, they were like, if you had just come sooner, he wouldn't have died. And he suffered with them as far as feeling their pain and compassion, because it says that he wept.
Yep.
But he also knew he wasn't scared. He wasn't intimidated at all, because all he had to do was touch him and say, get up and walk.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we just feel like our marriage is dead and there's nothing that can be done about it. And I just think that those are even seasons that doesn't scare God. But sometimes we don't allow him to breathe life into it.
Yeah. And, I was thinking while you were talking that the glory that God got raising Lazarus from the dead, like he paused and he did his work, and the glory he received was even so much greater because he was dead. Like, if he had just come while he was sick, it would have been a little miracle.
Right. To the people that were watching.
To the people who were watching.
Because he was already doing that.
Yeah.
Like, and the ironic thing is he was healing people, which was why he was delayed in getting to his friend.
Exactly. So you're choosing to heal them and not your friend? Not, like, why are you not coming for Lazarus? And so I understand how frustrating that must have been. Like, you're doing the very thing along the way to other people that we're begging you to come do for us. And he gets there and he's sad. I mean, that's the only time in Scripture, right, that it says Jesus wept. I mean, he cried tears of blood at Gethsemane, but he cried and he wept. And even though he knew he could, raise him and then heal him and make him walk. And I just wonder, like I know that God's glory is even more because of our story and the point that we got to. And we can both look back and think, I wish it had not gone that far. I wish that he had stopped it before, because he could. He had the power to, but it got to where it did, and our marriage very well could have just been dead. But because he brought life back into our marriage and breathed life back into us, his glory is so much more. We see it as just a miracle, and the miracle that it is, and not just he came along and made him better. No, he said, get up and walk, and he came out of his grave clothes.
Yeah, and that's a great point. He definitely got more glory from the people that were able to witness that and see that, because he didn't do that often. And so, those were, like you said, it feels like that was a bigger miracle.
Right,
I mean, a miracle's a miracle.
Right.
But it just felt like that's a bigger one.
Well, I mean, had he already been to the woman at the well?
Come on.
Well, I'm sorry.
Come on.
Okay, so but there were so many times in his ministry that he was like, well, the woman at the well, she actually went and told everybody. But there were lots of times that he just said, don't tell anybody
what I've done.
Well, don't tell anybody what I've done. But this was such a public, with all the friends and family around, that he was like, watch me do this.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay, so another one is the same power. So focusing on the word power, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead can restore what's broken between you. And the thought that I had here in thinking about this is the power that the power that God had to raise Jesus from the dead. And I think that we forget that same power is the power that is in charge of our marriage. And it's kind of like, if you think about, just like what you said, there's bigger miracles. I mean, okay, well, the biggest of the miracles was that Jesus died and was crucified, and then 3 days later rose from the dead. That's the miracle of miracles. But that same God is the same God that wants your marriage to be successful, and he wants your marriage to give him all the glory. And so I think that understanding that the same power, we serve the same God. And so that power can also be manifested inside of your marriage in order to restore your marriage and to resurrect your marriage, just like it resurrected Jesus.
That's good. So I'm pretty sure I said this several weeks ago when I heard it for the first time, but when you started talking about power, it reminded me of that Matt Chandler sermon where he was talking about how all of us, I bet every listener listening has thought, yes, I want the power of Jesus in my life. I want the power, like his power can heal my marriage. His power can change this in my marriage. His power can bring love back into our marriage. Like he can do all of this and I want him to. But what Matt Chandler's point was, we all ask for that power and desire and want that power, but then we don't live lives that require the power of Jesus to come into our life. And I started thinking about that with marriages as soon as he said it, because so many of us say, oh, the power of Jesus, yes, it could cause a miracle. I mean, he could do a miracle. Yes, it could cause us to have a better marriage, but you actually have to take the steps that require his power to take hold. If you just sit back and are like, okay, God, heal my marriage, I mean, that's not taking steps. It's just asking him to do that without you putting any skin in the game. Instead of saying, hey, let's take steps that require his power and try to trust again and, do all the things that we talk about all the time about how to help how to help you and your spouse have a godly marriage. But you have to actually take those steps forward so that you can kind of claim that power.
That's really good. Let me move on to number 4. Okay. So the fourth one is God specializes in turning graves into gardens. Great song.
Yeah, it is.
God specializes in turning graves into gardens, and that includes your marriage. And I think that just the acknowledgement and recognition that your hardest season might also become your greatest testimony. And that's our story. The hardest season of our lives and obviously of our marriage has turned into our greatest testimony, and really the greatest testimony that we can give for God and for what he's done in his miracle. And we just know that he doesn't waste pain. He always gets glory from pain. Doesn't waste a drop. And so I think that just for people to recognize, graves into gardens, it is a cool song. But it represents new beginnings. And so even going back to thinking about what we might have thought was dead could actually just be the new beginning of something. And I don't know, I was just thinking about this when I was trying to picture like the people that got to the tomb, John and Peter running to the tomb, and the ladies being there to prepare, and they got there and the stone was already rolled away, and Jesus was not there. There were just the cloths in the tomb. And I just wonder, even over the next several days, as Jesus started revealing himself to people, and like there were eyewitnesses of him being alive,
right?
And in bodily form, he was alive, and I just wonder, even after he ascended to heaven, how many times? And I don't know, because there's no record of this, but just think about how many times do you think that those people that saw and knew where the empty tomb maybe took people there and were like, this is where it was, and there's not a dead person in there anymore. And so it was like that tomb was no longer a tomb of a dead person. It wasn't like that wasn't a grave anymore.
Right.
It was a resurrection site. And so, no longer did that particular tomb have death and burial behind it. It was new life and new beginning. And I don't know. I know for me, if I had seen something like that with my own eyes, I would be wanting to take this was it. Like,
right.
Do you believe what I'm trying to tell you? This was where Jesus's body was, and it ain't there anymore. And so just being able to show that and to shout that testimony, to know that what we thought was dead and a grave, that God can turn it into a garden, that's something to celebrate. And you just know they had to go back there and just celebrate over and over again. This was the site of the resurrection.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Got nothing to add to that
no
one.
added parts.
That was good. I'm still processing that one.
Okay, so I think the last one is maybe more of a generic statement, but just kind of the main point of all of this is that an empty tomb means that your marriage still has a future. And I think that we should just all pause to say, no matter where your marriage is right now, your story isn't over. Because imagine the feeling of the people that truly believed that Jesus was going to be, that Jesus was the Messiah, but they thought he was coming back to take over and to be the king and to rule the people. And they were longing for that and waiting for that. And they thought they finally found him. And they watched him do all these miracles and listened to his teachings. And then all of a sudden, he said, hey, guess what, guys? Y'all are all going to just hang me out to dry and I'm going to be crucified. But I have to do this because I'm not going to stay dead and I'm going to come. But can you imagine that time between, the doom and gloom that was going on for those 3 days after the crucifixion and before he resurrected, and the guilt that they felt for not standing up for him, for not telling people that they were followers of his, and even just the recognition of we helped. We helped crucify him. And so, now who we thought was going to be the king and ruler and save our people, and now he's dead. And so the story wasn't over. Like, that was just the intermission.
Yep.
And then, of course, the climax and the grand finale was the resurrection. And so that's what gives us life. And to know that our marriage that might feel like in that intermission, knowing that there's still hope. And the reason for that hope is because our hope it's not in our marriage. Our hope is in a person, and that person is Jesus.
That's right.
And if our hope is really in that person, then we can believe that he's a good God. He loves us. He has our best interest in mind. He wants what's best for us. He's for marriages, all of those things. And so we have to believe and we have to know that God's still working, even when we can't see it. And that's the thing. Like, it wasn't like God just said, oh no, Jesus is dead. Now what am I going to do? I've got to shift my plans and go to plan B. No, he was conquering death during those 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was just waiting. It was the hey, Friday's here, hang on, because Sunday's coming, that. And I think that Easter is just the ultimate reminder that hope is never lost. No matter what, and there's a lot of people even that listen to us, and you're like, well, my marriage is already dead. There's been divorce, and we've already ruined it, or my spouse is not coming back.
Right.
Like it's over, and I think that even the message there is that God is still working, that God can still redeem your story, and really, the invitation at Easter is to choose to believe that something new is possible. Yeah. And no matter where you are in your story is not over. Today is not the end of your story. God's still writing the story. And so just to remember that the same God that raised Jesus from the dead is still bringing things back to life today. And that includes your marriage. And that includes you. Even if you, like I said, even if you feel like your marriage has already died, there's still hope. There's still hope because of who we serve.
That's right. That's right. He's a God of hope.
Okay. Anything else
That's it.
as we wrap up our Easter Sunday?
Easter, you guys. I hope you had a wonderful day with your family.
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
Happy Easter. See ya.
Peace.
Peace.